Perfect. And I believe that our first take of the night gets to go to the returning champ, Matt over there. He's going to let us know what he thought of Bobby Brown, Don't Be Cruel.
I'm going to run some numbers here first, John, your favorite part of every segment.
The best.
Don't Be Cruel by Bobby Brown comes in at number 1,893 in the 1980s on Best Ever Albums, number 196 in 1988, number 13,342 of all time. It is Bobby Brown's highest rated album on Best Ever Albums. It did not make Rolling Stone's list tonight. And Bobby Brown is ranked number 7,313 of overall artist rankings on Best Ever Albums. So Bobby Brown, yeah, I know the singles from this record. I remember Bobby Brown, former member of New Edition. I was much more familiar with, all the artists broke off and did their own thing, but I was, around this time, I was definitely much more familiar with Belle Biv DeVoe with their album Poison. I actually had a tape of copy of that. When I was a kid. Actually, that's several years after. That's a couple. I think that was from 1990. So this is a couple years before that.
Were they also in New Edition?
They were. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't remember. Belle, Biv, and DeVoe. I don't remember all their names. Ronnie Bell, Michael Bivins, and something DeVoe.
Okay, I'm not familiar.
Jack
with the New
DeVoe.
Expanded universe here.
Yeah, and then there was
you've
Bobby.
Also got Johnny Gill.
Johnny Gill, right.
And Ralph Tresvant.
Oh, so there were six of them. Were there six of them?
There were five, and then Johnny Gill replaced Bobby Brown. So Ralph Tresvant was the other. Yeah, so it was Belle Biv DeVoe, Ralph Tresvant, and Bobby Brown, I think, and then I believe Johnny Gill was added later.
Well, I've heard of all of those guys except for Tresvant. Yeah. I don't know.
He was more adult contemporary R&B.
Okay. Yeah. So Bobby, so this album, I like this, and it reminded me of the Belle Biv DeVoe stuff. I like this era of R&B that's got
New Jack Swing.
Exactly, the New Jack Swing. I love that style. I think it's just it's very catchy. It's got a great. It's kind of like, and in parts of this record, it's kind of like a hybrid of like a rap album, but it's also got the R&B. I always like the upbeat songs of that. That the drum, it's definitely got its own that 80s type production with this. It's a little bit synthesized with the drums and whatnot, but I think it sounds great. I think it's it's upbeat and catchy. I like the so the songs like "Don't Be Cruel," "My Prerogative," and what's the other? Every Little Step. Those are like the three main bangers of this record. But I also like the ballads. I was thinking back to kind of some of the other R&B records that we have covered. And, a lot of times my take would be, I liked the upbeat songs. I wasn't so much into the slower ballads. And these ballads here, I liked. Yeah, I don't know what it is about, this era or this type of this style of R&B, but I thought the ballads were pretty good. It's all Babyface.
I was about to say, this is L.A. Reid and Babyface, like the two producers of that era. Yeah. So
right. I'm looking at I have the writers up here, and Bobby Brown did contribute to several parts of this, but if you look at pretty much across the board, it's Babyface and L.A. Reid, so the main writer. So it's there's some baby making music on this stuff, lots of girls and lots of I loving you forever and treat you right and let's get down tonight and all that stuff. And it's just a fun record, this, it's of its time, but it's also good of its time. That like, as John said, that New Jack Swing kind of beat, that shuffle, it's very, it's too bad it kind of died out. Like, I think that it's still something that still holds together today. I think you could probably do a version of this that's a little bit more modernized, that still has a similar kind of swing and beat to it. So it's just, it's got the horns, and it's got the attitude, My Prerogative. He's going to do whatever he wants to do and all that stuff. So you got that as well. This is R&B that I know we're going to get more into this, but this is a thumbs up for me from a guy who traditionally is not really into R&B specifically. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
I'll let you go next, Josh, and I'll finish it up.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with Bobby Brown other than My Prerogative and him being married to Whitney Houston. And I think New Edition was also before my time, and so I came to this album pretty fresh, and I feel like this is the next evolution of R&B. It's got obviously the New Jack Swing is kind of a new thing. I think we briefly discussed it on one of the other albums, R&B albums, maybe. I can't remember what it was, but
it was a little while ago, but I definitely remember talking about it. I forget.
But that's kind of the backbone to this album, and it's got a really upbeat, fun energy to it. There's a sense of humor. I feel like he's got a lot of swagger as an artist, and that comes through on the tracks. My Prerogative kind of being the best example of that. But there's a confidence here, and he's got a nice voice that goes along with kind of the silkiness to the beats and to kind of the love songs and the songs about sex. And then you've got the song Roni, which I'd never heard before, which was so funny lyric wise.
Tenderoni.
Yeah. But
Tenderoni with the cheese later. But this is just tenderoni. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And but it has a nice groove to them also. And it is just called Roni on the album, John. So that's why.
Oh no, I'm just says it's like a Roni's like a nice girl.
Yeah.
It's slang, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then
but like also can be tough. Like that's a Roni, like can hang, but also she's nice. That's a Roni. So
yeah. Oh, got it. But it seems like this. I think Bobby Brown would lead to like Boys to Men and those other and there's other 90s R&B acts that are escaping me.
Bill DeVoe led to Boys to Men, but they're in that, because they discovered Boys to Men.
Got it.
So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess too, this is like another example of, a solo artist coming out of a group of like artists that's, probably aimed at like teens mostly. And I think this album too was probably really beloved by teens, or at least that market probably had a big market share to that. But this album's has a pretty wide appeal too. I think it's fun to listen to, it's easy to listen to, and it's aimed at a Black audience, which and I think there's probably some crossover appeal as well. But having that represented on our podcast, but also kind of in the 80s, in the late 80s, in 88 was an important thing. So,
well, I want you to picture this, guys. It's a cold morning, Christmas morning in the year of 1988. Your friend John on the podcast is opening up his gifts, looking for different things. He'd made a list, and one of the things he'd asked for is the cassette tape of Bobby Brown's Don't Be Cool.
And Santa Claus came through for you.
He opens it up. He looks to see what Santa gave him, and he sees the beginning of a box fade and a swanky suit on the front cover. And he realizes that he's gotten Don't Be Cruel. And for the next 2 months, pretty much every day, your friend John puts on this cassette to the level where my sister, when asking about the show and where we're at in the late 80s, said to me, well, you're going to have to cover Don't Be Cruel, because like in the 80s, that was like your album for a while there. So to say, first, like this album was omnipresent in my school class. Like I did not know anybody who did not want this. And I would guess that probably 80% of my classroom at the time, which would have been a third grade classroom, was asking for this for Christmas. And yeah, I mean, I put this on, and it was like being sucked back into a very early period of my life. I could still sing every single word of every song by memory on this album.
Yeah.
Don't Be Cruel. I love that it starts with the cruel interlude and ends with the cruel exit, which is fantastic. And both are like only like 15 seconds long, but like they're just there. It goes into Don't Be Cruel, which is just a fantastic pop song. Like a perfect example of the song that is like street enough to be played on black radio, but also crossover enough that it can get you like a song on the Ghostbusters soundtrack like a year later, you know? And, you know, then you continue with My Prerogative and Every Little Step. I also should mention that all of these songs came with fantastic videos that normally involve Bobby Brown doing just insane dancing. Like Every Little Step, he's dancing around like gigantic letters, you know, in the, you know, they like looking after a girl, like sort of wooing a girl, you know,
with like a jacket with no shirt underneath, right? Yes, like the bare chested. Yeah.
And he doesn't even, I don't even think he has the box fade there. I think he's got the thing where it's like the lopsided fade instead, where it's like one
with a part. He's got like the
heavier
part
on the other. Yep. So, and then it's like My Prerogative, he comes out with that like Madonna headpiece on to an adoring crowd of women and basically is just like thrusting while there's somebody playing the sax, and it just, you don't even know what the vibe, it's like, looks like it's in a warehouse somewhere and Bobby Brown's just going for it. So that one's there. And it just, the song Rockwitcha is another song that's like perfect, like Quiet Storm R&B. That's just, it's just like a fantastic album, especially the front end of this album. Oh my God. It's like one fantastic track that was all over the radio after another. And Josh, I know you said it sort of was aimed at the black audience, but this definitely crossed over too.
Yeah.
Like this stuff was going on pop, especially like Every Little Step and My Prerogative. Those songs were sort of omnipresent. You know, and then the next album would have things like On Our Own, you know, which Matt, you probably know that one. Like
Too hot to handle, too cold to hold. You call it Ghostbusters, and they laugh.
Oh yeah, I know that song too.
If it's up to us,
call the Ghostbusters. Then it's in control. Yeah, that one.
He's actually in the movie too when they get arrested, and he's like hanging out. He's like, oh, it's the Ghostbusters.
Yeah, and there's some other tracks you'd know too, and then it's Ghostbusters 2, Josh, is what that one was tied to. And then,
the better one.
There's another one.
Ray Parker Jr. dominated the first one.
There's another one like this, and then of course it takes the turn into like the more tawdry Bobby Brown, of course highlighted by "Humpin' Around," which was the lead track off of that album.
I forgot about that one.
A fantastic song, and that was sort of there when he did it. But yeah, he was sort of the archetype in some ways for like a 90s hip-hop presence. He was the guy that broke out of New Edition. The others, like Johnny Gill, would have like Rub You the Right Way and other songs, and Belle Biv DeVoe obviously had Poison most notably. You know that song, right? It's an awesome song.
I do. I just like forget these names are just like all the just dripping with sexual innuendo.
I mean, come on, man. There's going to be all kinds of memory lane stuff on that. Like I said, I'm trying not to go like into that lane quite yet. But yeah, this is that classic New Jack Swing sound. It's as soon as it's L.A. Reid sound, you know, he'd be all over stuff. Like Babyface kind of takes it in a little bit of a different direction and leans into where he even starts, you know, doing his own music, but he could do blues and different stuff like that. But like L.A. Reid just continued to do. I think Dallas Austin was the other guy. I think it was his partner, and they were sort of around like Janet Jackson's career. Like we're going to do like Rhythm Nation later. And even though that's not New Jack Swing, that's sort of that like L.A. Reid sound.
I think that's the album I was thinking of when we were talking about
Rhythm Nation 1814.
Yeah. No, when we talked about her first Control.
Other album.
Control.
Oh yeah. Control
Swing
had elements of New Jack Swing, exactly. Yeah. So there's you know, cousin sounds and stuff like that. But yeah, this one is. It's funny that we did like Taylor Dane and Bobby Brown back to back because they're two people I vividly remember having lots of hits. They kind of just don't kind of get discussed, but for people that lived through the era, they have like deep fond memories of them, and when like you throw their music in front of random people, they're like, oh, this is pretty good, how did I not know this person? And they're like, I don't know how they couldn't have been big or they were underrated. It's like, well, yes, but also they were huge in their time, so it's all the things, right? But
and did you know about him from his first album? Like, because this is his second album.
I don't know how like Bobby Brown came into my consciousness. I think just
MTV probably.
Yeah, or the
I
radio.
don't think so. I think it was just the radio and just people listening, and a lot of like older sisters of friends of mine, like New Edition, and just, you know, he had like a solo album ahead of it. This sound was starting to pop a little bit, so you were starting to get bits and pieces, and I don't know, but like it just, I got it early too. It was like before like My Prerogative and stuff like really broke through. So I think some of it was a function of where I grew up too. And just the musical influences were just, you know, they were a little bit more R&B or rap and stuff. I got to that a little earlier maybe than you guys got to, just because that was more of the pop culture in that New York, New Jersey area, city adjacent area than maybe it was other places. But I can't give this anything but a thumbs up. This album, both in terms of, I think even if I didn't have that connection to it, I would still like that because I like the sound and I like this type of pop music. But with the connection, it throws it over the hump a little bit more for me. So
he didn't really have much long. I mean, he's only got 5 records.
No.
He actually had 4 with New Edition.
Same type of career that Taylor Dane had. You know what I mean? Like 2 massive albums and then kind of.
Although he did like 2 in the like 86, 88, 92, 97, and then 2012 was his last album. So there was a big jump, and he did 4 albums with New Edition that was basically 83, 84, 85, 86. So they were quite prolific.
And then they came back in like the mid 90s.
New Edition, they toured. They had a tour and everything.
Yeah, and they brought back like all 6 of them, the original 5, along with Johnny Gill. And at different times they were like there. And I remember they made a video and they were like all in like suits and stuff. And it was kind of like, oh, look, New Edition's back. So, yeah. Yep.
New Edition.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys. I love this cover, by the way, too, because I always try to figure out like where Bobby Brown is standing, because there's like a marble. Like, I know this cover without even having it up. It's like there's a marble side of it, and then there's like what looks to be like a wooden background part of it, and then Bobby Brown.
Beige, or it's like he's in a hotel lobby. Perhaps.
Kind
of
of
weird. Yeah,
he's got a nice
like
suit
white
though.
Pocket scarf, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And
Double-breasted suit. Yep.
Double-breasted suit. Yes. And isn't he carrying something too?
No, he's got one hand in his pocket and the other one on a chair, on the back of a chair.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. That's right. So I'm trying to. Yeah, he's standing behind a chair. So it's icon. The word iconic is used way too often, but for my world, for the John world, this was an iconic album cover because as soon as I got it, you know what I mean? Like I knew what I was getting, and it was big score. So while this was not the first album I bought with my own money, it was maybe the first album I asked for Christmas at like the influence of friends, as opposed to just it being bought for me. Because they're like, oh, that song you heard on the radio that you sing when you're 5? Like, here's a cassette of it. And it's like, oh, how about that? Like, not quite understand. This was like, I wanted this album. So, so it's got
look at that. All Music. Alex Henderson of All Music says that Don't Be Cruel was to Bobby Brown what Control was to Janet Jackson. A tougher,
for sure.
A tougher, more aggressive project that shed his bubblegum image altogether and brought him to a new artistic and commercial plateau.
Yeah,
so I could see that.
That's actually a great comparison because it took them from like more teen, performer to adult with sex appeal type performer. Because he's not singing like Candy Girl here.
No.
He's singing
yes,
rock
much,
with you.
Much less innocent on this one.
No.
Or more aware. Could be mature.
Take it slow.
Hornier.
Yes. Self-actualized.
Something like that. But yes, thumbs up. Is it safe to say that you guys feel the same way?
Oh yeah.
I think it's kind of essential, like, to understanding the pop culture of that era.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna make a guess too. I'm gonna guess because I think I'm gonna guess that Josh is gonna become an even bigger fan of R&B through our journey here, and I think that I have no idea how Matt's gonna be, but I think some albums are gonna resonate with him and some are not, and I'm gonna have absolutely no idea why some will and some won't.
Too.
But
do you know how old? By the way, do you know how old he was when this came out?
Like
if my math is accurate.
Old.
19.
19. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That sounds
crazy.
about right. That's what I would.
Wow.
That's what I guessed. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were young New Edition when they.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was born in '69. This was
only
88.
54.
Yeah,
he's as old as Rue.
Oh boy!
Wow.
But yes, he was. It is amazing. Artist ages,
right?
Especially now that we're going to start going into the era when it just won't seem like everybody's older because they predate us. Now we're getting into the era where some people were contemporaries, albeit not in direct age with us, but the processing in some, I think it's going to be like, whoa, they're way older than I thought. Holy cow.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, they're only that young. So,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yep. So I think that puts a bow on the Bobby Brown segment. But yeah, check this one out. This one's like a little bit of a hidden gem at the end of the 80s. And shout out to my sister who had to listen to this album through the wall of our bedrooms.
She loved it too.
She is a fan, though. Yes, she is a fan of this album, so it was not there. And, there will be some albums in the early 90s, which I will shout out to my sister. Both albums that I listen to and she processes as mine, and then ones that I process as ones that she listened to regularly in the 90s. So, yeah.
Nice.